panel to be as interactive as possible, so we will open up the panel for audience questions. When we do, please indicate that you have a question by raising your hand or by typing it in the chat. And if you do have a question, please be prepared to unmute your microphone when prompted so that you can ask them. With that being said, I would now like to open it up for the panelists to just quickly introduce themselves. Kira, if you could start us off, can you briefly describe your name, pronouns, company, and current role?
Yeah, so my name is Kira. Pronouns are she, her, hers. And the company I currently work at is Perkins and Will. They're an architecture firm. But my role there is not as architect. I'm actually a branded environments designer. So I'm the resident and house artist, which is super fun.
Perfect. Olivia, if you'd like to go next.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I use she, her pronouns. I work for myself. I'm an independent designer. And so I work with agencies, in-house teams, nonprofits, solo entrepreneurs. It's something different all the time.
Perfect. Stuart, if you could go next.
Sure. Hi, my name is Stuart Rodriguez. My pronouns are he, him, and I work for the Ohio State University Press, where I work as a book designer and a project manager for academic and scholarly publishing.
Thank you. Margaret, if you could go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Margaret Toe. I use she, her pronouns. Similar to Olivia, I also work for myself. I am a filmmaker, designer, and animator, and I have my own studio called Studio Saka, which focuses on design and film production for social impact and climate justice work.
Thank you. And then Sean.
Hi, I'm Sean David Christensen, and my pronouns are he, him, and I am an artist and filmmaker that has a day job at the USC Thornton School of Music. And I have my own company, which is a music publishing and management company called Palmer Music. And I'm honored to be here with all of you today.
Thank you. Likewise. As we delve into the first question, I want you all to tell us about your experience in the art and design industry, why you chose it, and how you ended up there. So your career journey. Sean, if you could start us off, we'll go backwards.
Oh, sure. I guess with me, it's a career in the arts doesn't seem like something I ever chose. I feel like I was constantly designing and creating things. One of my earliest memories is I was 3 years old and I was drawing rainwater on my parents' little what does it call it? Like a staircase baluster or whatever. I was drawing rainwater with a blue magic marker. I assume they were none too thrilled about that. But literally from the earliest age I can remember, I was always making things. So a career in the arts just became this sort of natural segue of like, how can I take my love and my passion, see how I can monetize it, or see how I can bring a large team together to achieve a large goal, like making a film, making an album, which are hugely massive collaborative projects. So career in the arts was just a natural path for me, Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Margaret, if you could go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I would also say that growing up, I've always had a passion for art, drawing, and design. I always had my sketchbook and crayons with me wherever I go. I don't think at an early age I knew that it could be something that I could pursue in the career. But then I think from my major, like kind of studying animation and just even in high school, also learning more about digital design. I kind of continued taking classes or on my own time trying to pursue my passion. And it's definitely not a straight path. I started my career early on in digital marketing. So just on my own time, continue building that passion in animation and creativity, doing my own projects, and slowly kind of discover what I really like to do within the art and design industry.
Thank you. Sir, if you could go ahead.
Sure. I it almost feels like I fell into book design a little bit. After I graduated from USC in 2011, I moved back home to Santa Cruz, and I was looking for a similar program because I did JEP with Dornsife. I was an English major. And so I was looking for like a similar organization where I could volunteer, work with students, creative writing, things like that. I really thought I was going to be like a capital W writer at some point. But I realized that working within this nonprofit, where we worked with like local elementary schoolers and high schoolers, helping them writing, working in the classroom to teach creative fiction, poetry writing, things like that. I was volunteering with this organization and working on kind of the back end stuff. I did a little bit of volunteering in the classroom, but I did a lot of copy editing. I did a lot of design work. I taught myself how to design books on Microsoft Word back in 2013. And from there learned how to do InDesign and figured out, and I'm still learning so many things about how to design books correctly. But from there, I did that for about 6 years. I worked freelance. The organization was eventually able to hire me, and then there was also some breaks in there, working in retail and working in offices and doing a lot of that while figuring out what I was going to do during COVID. I found this position with Ohio State University, and it was a fit for my experience, and it was what I wanted to do. And now I live in Ohio, and it's great. But yeah, no, the work is really rewarding, and it's a lot of fun. So
Yeah, InDesign, personally, when I've ever had to work with it, I know that it is hell. So yeah.
and
Um,
Microsoft Word is worse. So
oh no. Olivia, if you could go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually graduated in the spring of 2020. So I fully had the intention of applying full time. I really wanted to work at an agency. I was studying design at Roski, and because it was just so uncertain, as we really were in the peak of the pandemic there, I was just applying to places, not hearing anything, and I was like, well, I want to stay busy. So I started taking on freelance projects, and in the waiting and waiting, I started taking on more projects. And then it was at a point where I realized like I'm at full capacity and I'm basically working full time. And it was really fruitful for me. I started getting connected with some really good people in organizations. And I was like, you know what? Like I'm worrying about this thing over here that I kind of idealized throughout my time in school. And I was like, I'll just jump and go for it. So I really didn't plan to be an independent designer, but I fell into it and it's been amazing.
I'm happy to hear that. Kira, if you could tell us how you got started in your journey.
Yeah, and I'll say I graduated in 2022, so I don't have as rich of experience as everyone else on this panel. But I might be more the opposite. I actually had no intention of doing art and design until maybe junior year of high school. I realized that my passion was in experience and storytelling, and that my medium was then going to be visual. And I was lucky that USC was interdisciplinary. So my degree got to be a third Roski, a third dramatic arts, a third cinematic arts. And kind of from that, I ended up interning after USC at Disney Imagineering in Florida. And then I've dabbled in restaurant design. And now I work at an architecture firm where I help with master planning and experience wayfinding and arts and sculptures. And it's just really been interesting to see how interdisciplinary and just saying yes to new design projects and continue to learn keeps pushing me to be like, okay, well, maybe now I do want to keep learning this, trying this. So I think my journey is still very much at the beginning, but it's been fun to say yes to so many different things.
Yeah, and I mean, no worries that you are a 2022 graduate. Part of this is kind of hearing multiple people's stories because, we end up in all different places, but obviously we're all here because of arts and design. With that being said, I wanted to ask, how important is it to have a portfolio in this industry? And what tips or advice do you have on creating a good portfolio? To anyone that wants to jump in.
I'll start. I think that I know for me, I was terrified. Like going into senior year at USC, I was terrified because everyone is like, you have to have the perfect portfolio to be hired. And I think there's a lot of anxiety around it for students. And while it is super important to demonstrate your technical skills, Honestly, I think so many people want to just impress the companies they want to work at and the people they idolize. But I think what's more important is demonstrating how you're a good fit for the places where you want to be. I think people want to know more about like how you think critically, what makes you really curious about what you're passionate about, and what your perspective is. Like that is so much more valuable to see throughout a body of work, than just having a ton of bells and whistles on your portfolio. So being authentically you is going to take you a long, long way, versus just trying to show that you know and can do everything.
I see. And yeah, that USC pressure is real. Sean, I saw that you had your microphone on mute.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Olivia said. I mean, yes, we're all entering a competitive job market for your students who are about to graduate, but really what people who are looking to hire, they're looking to hire your perspective, what you bring to a job, how you will add to a team of people. When you get into your job position, you're not expected to know everything. You're not supposed to know like, I know all the apps. I know 12 different like protocols you rely on your team to get through a project on a daily basis. I'm constantly looking for help in my office. Oh, can you help me do this? Oh, you're an expert at that. Can you teach me? You're always learning. So like, don't feel like your resume has to be this like total mastery because you never get there. You know, like Stuart said, like he's still learning InDesign. I'm still learning Photoshop, like it's a constant process of evolving your skill set. And yes, you do need to have those baseline skills, but at the end of the day, what's going to get you that job is how you see the world, how you think critically and thoughtfully about the impact you make, because art leaves a huge impact. Kyra's work with wayfinding. There's a design in leading people into a structure. It's not just like, oh, just add a door there. Like, well, what is a sign going to look like? What color are we going to use to, annotate and lead people to certain highlighted areas? So people who are hiring, they want your perspective, and that's going to get you that job more than bells and whistles.
Yeah, that was really greatly said. Kira, Margaret, Stuart, any insight y'all have? Kira?
Yeah, I will say I felt like my senior year, there's a hot contest between professors saying have finalized work or show process. I will say on the other side of this, show process. I think that kind of speaking to what Olivia and Sean said, having work that you can point to that demonstrates how you think, how you use tools, how you overcome challenges, how you ask for help. People want to work with people that they want to collaborate with. And to what Sean was saying, like you're asking for help every day. So showcase in your portfolio how you are collaborative. And also, in addition to that, like don't sweat the small stuff. Like no one's not going to hire you because they found a typo 3 months later or something. So like give yourself grace. Also add in the artwork that brings you joy. You want to have a piece in there that you can speak to about your passions. I will tell you, like 3 different job interviews brought up the fact that I had an Arrested Development art piece in there. And to me, it wasn't like this grand thing I want to talk about. It wasn't something I spent a ton of time on, but it had a human connection. So remember, they're humans on the other end and they want to collaborate with you. So use your portfolio as a way to express that collaborative side of your personality.
Perfect. I would love to see the Arsenal development piece someday. Margaret, go ahead.
Yeah, just kind of adding on to what everyone was saying, showing your thought process is really great. Like just for someone to hire you to kind of get to know you a little more. It doesn't really matter if it's like the perfect design color, but if you kind of are able to list how you think, that's super helpful for people to get to know a little more about you. And also speaking to what Kira was saying, like initiate projects that speaks to your passion. Personally, it would be environmental issues and sustainability, but if it's culture or food or fashion, if you can tailor some of those projects to your own passion, I think that is something that really stands out because it's personal to you. And then that's also like a great talking point when you're in interviews or when you're showcasing your portfolio to someone. I think that adds on top of what your talent is, it adds to what your personality, your passion, and what you care about. And that is something great, like a great jumping off point to share more about you as a person.
Yeah, that's great. I had never considered, food and culture, but that makes a really good point actually. Stuart, I know as a book designer, I don't know if maybe portfolios look a little bit different for you, but anything that you have to say?
Yeah, I don't have, I think, a ton to add to the amazing answers that we've already heard for this question. My journey was a little bit different just because so much of it was self-taught, and a lot of it was gathering 6 years of materials that I'd put together, just kind of experientially, some as a volunteer, in terms of interior typesetting. And like you said, it's kind of hard to showcase that. It's not as flashy as a book cover that you can put on your website. But I did want to touch on the point that several folks made, Kira, Olivia, Margaret, in terms of making sure to showcase things that are also your passions. Part of my portfolio that I was sending around in the summer of 2020 was I designed a cookbook from scratch for fun. It just because I like coffee table books, that was the kind of design work I wanted to do. And, like folks said, was it perfect? No, it wasn't, but it was, it showcased an additional side of design, and also it was something that was enjoyable for me to pursue. So focus on things that are enjoyable for you to pursue, not just what you think is gonna, necessarily gonna be the perfect thing to get you hired. But yeah.
I love that answer. All design is valid. Um, what are the challenges or benefits of working within this industry? What are your favorite parts of your day, and what are the parts you hate the most?
I guess I'll jump in just real quick, just to, I don't know, just since I was the last time. Um, I I work for a university, which if you can find, I think my thrust here is going to be look maybe in non-standard avenues to hire for design. When I was looking to work in book design, I knew about all of, you've got Penguin and all of the major publishing companies that are in New York or London or San Francisco. And the academic publishing world in my case is so much broader. I don't make great money. That's probably one of the cons. It's a decent salary, but it's nothing crazy high. But the job security is great, and there are, I think, just a lot more avenues, a lot more potential avenues, I think. So
Yeah, and Kira, I saw that you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm actually super interested to hear some of the answers from these self-employed designers. But kind of jumping off of Stuart's, I like the company I work at is fairly large, and so on one hand, what I really enjoy is that it's human-centric design, so really focus on talking with people and designing to their needs, and sustainability focus. So for me, those are two important values. So I think for me, designing towards my values has been really fulfilling. Um, and I appreciate the scale of some of the projects. That can be super interesting work. On the flip side, being a corporate designer, it's in the name, So I think that it's not always designing the stuff that you are always passionate about. It's not always designing with clients that you yourself would pick. So I think that there's also a healthy balance of recognizing with security and scale and scope comes sometimes a trade-off of how personally passionate are you about each individual item. Yeah, you don't have full control, and that's okay.
Nice, thank you for that. Do any other panelists have anything to add to this?
Yeah, sure. I'll hop in. I think as an independent designer, I feel like one of my favorite things is getting to be agile, like getting every day, getting to work with different clients. Sometimes they're huge and they're corporate, or they're like an entertainment or apparel and they're big brands that you know. And then sometimes you work with smaller teams, but you get to be really hands-on and super involved in the process. And I think just being able to change mindsets and being really open to challenges and learning. I think think constantly learning, especially doing projects across different industries, just continuing to be a sponge to that type of information and experiences is honestly, it helps me be more creative. So I feel like that is really rewarding because I'm not stuck in the same cycle of, oh, I know what to expect today, or I know what to expect this quarter. Something is always changing. I think that's great. But I think on the other side of that, specifically being an independent designer, is the constantly working. And I think sometimes having a lot on your plate, definitely some periods of burnout, which is not fun. Um, but I think, like many other people have said, being passionate about the work that we do, makes it all worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, especially from people that have their own companies and stuff, I always hear like, I love being my own boss, but additionally, that adds more responsibility. Sean, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Amy. Yeah, I'll start with the things that I don't like. And my independent artists can speak to this, where you've already agreed on the rate and you get halfway through a project and you realize I should have charged more, or I should have set in some expectations, more detailed scope of work with like clear strata of like it's X amount of money for this much work. Once you go above that, then it's going to be this much. So I guess, but the only way that you learn how to do that is you really have to crawl through some projects where you get halfway through and you go, oh boy, this is gonna be a loss. So for all you designers out there, like getting those first gigs, they kind of they allow you to experience what that scope of work entails, how much time you're putting into a project. Keep track of that and always assign a dollar amount to how much your time is worth, because that's what you're giving to a client every time you accept a gig. You are giving them your time. So assign a high value to that time. And that's something that I'm still learning. I get through a project and I'm like, oh, it should have been X amount instead of Y, you know. But at the end of the day, what gives me that vitality of keeping on in this world is I love the feeling I get when I'm able to connect people in my network with each other and form these combinations within these large teams that I oversee of like, oh, you're an amazing arranger and producer. I'd love to connect you with this animator that's looking for a musician, you know, or you do great sound editing work. This is a podcast that's looking for, you know, sound effects and Foley or something. You know, I'm always looking for ways to help uplift others in my network, because I feel that only pays dividends, because people have a good experience and then they recommend you for a job, and then it just works, you know, all kinds of ways. Yeah.
That is such a wholesome answer. I love that. And I mean, I think with your cons too, I feel like artists are just like criminally underpaid. And not a lot of people know how much time it takes to make art, like the planning, the actual creating. It's a lot of things that go into that. So I'm very happy that you raised that point. Margaret, you have Studio Saga, you're an animator, you're a filmmaker, you have a multitude of things. I'd really love to hear your response.
Yeah, just building on to what Sean said. I mean, for me, I'm constantly tracking my hours. I'm also still in the learning process of, you know, what is my time worth? And the more you get to do more projects, the more you kind of know how much time each things take. It will help you in the process. Like the first few gigs, I mean, even for myself, I have underpaid myself many times, and it's just you learn as you go, for sure. And also I think what helps is just talking to other freelance designers, and you know, being part of communities who might be like, you know, freelance designer groups, and never be afraid to ask, because I think I have also benefited a lot in just asking, and just, you know, just to talk to someone else to say, hey, am I charging too low for this kind of project? And, you know, having that back and forth really helps a lot. And, um, you know, when you hear yourself say it, you're like, oh my God, this actually will take me probably a few more hours. And in the proposals, always I put in like limit the amount of revisions, because clients can ask for many rounds of revisions, and you would need to build for that. So, um, yeah, having that, I guess, community of designers where you can talk to, or even just your peers, that helps a lot. And then in terms of challenges, I will say, yeah, like being an entrepreneur, you kind of need to take care of also the accounting, acquiring new clients and proposals, like I said. So there is that to kind of balance doing the actual design work versus the business side of things. But it's, for me at least, I think it's a learning process and it's been fun. It's challenging, but also I enjoy learning different parts of the business of design as well. And I think that's one of the benefits also is you do get to choose the work and the client who you want to work with and who you're passionate about. And if you have worked with people who you maybe may not have as much of a good experience, you can always choose to not work with them if you're your own business. Oh.
That's such a good point. Right now that I'm hearing a little bit more about like community and networking, I want to ask an extra question. But networking is extremely important for internship searches and other industries. What has networking been like within your industry? And do you have any tips or any insights for students, wanting to get into arts and design? How did networking play in for any of y'all, if it did?
The best place you can network is right now, right here at USC, while you're all students. You're all shoulder to shoulder with each other in the same classrooms, in line to get food at Coffee Bean or whatever. Like, this is the time, because this is when you're all figuring out where you're going to go after graduating, And one of my teachers at film school, he said, every day you set foot on campus, you're kind of auditioning for yourself and others around you. You are presenting a version of yourself that people keep track of, people remember. And when you get out there in the world, it's not always the most talented people that get the jobs. Sometimes it's the people who are like, this person's really kind. This person shows up on time. This person remembered my name. This person's thoughtful. Like, yes, the talented people do, they do make some jobs and they get some of the gigs, not all the gigs. And it's not always, talent is not always a one factoring determinant. Networking is also about keeping track of people who are generous and give back, because those people, surprise, surprise, get invited into the rooms, because making art, especially in big projects, it's like, sometimes it comes down to, can I stand to be in the same room with this person 8 hours a day for the next 3 months, the next year? So pay attention to that. Networking isn't all about trying to create a version of yourself that's like cool, or like, oh, I should go for that person. They seem really cool and hip. Just be yourself and radiate grace and positivity, as much as you can, because more often than not, that's what gets you back in the room. I mean, people just want to spend time with you.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I believe it is called horizontal networking, although I may be wrong. Do any other panelists have anything to say about the topic of networking?
Yeah, I'll add on to what Sean said. I think everyone should find a way to network in a way that feels authentic to them. Like me personally, I am not a LinkedIn warrior. Like I am not posting all the time and sharing stories. And I know people that are fantastic at that. But for me, like I have made the most genuine connection towards going on coffee dates with people, connecting in person. If I go to like a branding event or a conference and just getting to know people over a couple of days, like to me, I've had really great experiences with that. And the walls just feel a little bit more down and it doesn't feel so transactional. So I feel like more comes out of it. But some people might prefer networking through social media, or I mean, just find what feels right and try things out. Like sometimes cold emails can work. And I think you constantly just have to be on like, constantly be aware of the fact that there are potential connections everywhere. And if you look at it from that perspective, and again, just show up as you, people will get to know you and then they'll want to introduce you to other people. And it's a lot more organic than you think.
Yeah, I love that. And honestly, with the whole LinkedIn stuff you're speaking to me, it is so confusing to me, and I hate having to advertise and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely like hanging out with the people in your network, whether it just be going for a coffee or just, saying hello, honestly, sometimes might even help. Kira, Margaret, Stuart, anything that y'all have to add to the topic of networking?
I'm thinking back to like when I was a senior, and I think what I'll say, I don't know if I ever got a job off of networking. So I'm also going to set expectations here. I don't necessarily think that that is always true to form. For some people, it is true to form. But I think when I think about what was helpful networking, it was with intentionality, asking also specific questions. Like I think I learned so much about industries without having to hop around from jobs by just asking really intentional questions and giving people space to answer authentically about their experience. But then also maintaining that. I think that relationship maintenance is an important thing. You want to give back to the community that's uplifting you. So making sure that you're being kind of a positive cog in that machine in a sense. So um, yeah, I think that reaching out to people are always happy to share their experience. Just try to do it with some targeted specifics. Don't go in there thinking that they'll get you a job because I don't know if they got a job off of networking, and try to be open to kind of maintaining what that relationship looks like every 6 months to a year. Do like a little check-in.
Sorry, my microphone was weird. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Networking looks different for other people, and sometimes that might not even be what ends up benefiting people. Margaret, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
These are such amazing answers. I guess I'll just add that maybe don't be afraid to reach out to someone for an informational interview or for a coffee. I think a lot of people who they've also been a student before, they've been in your shoes. So a lot of us have struggled in our path. So happy to share, tips. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions or, raise your hand um, and reach out to people who you may not know.
Yeah, definitely. I've also heard the advice of, look up at the company that you're interested in, look at alumni that are working there, have informational interviews with them. Yeah, that's definitely a way that people get a little bit more insight. Stuart, did you have anything that you want to add to this topic? Totally fine if not.
Um, Not a ton. Great answers were covered, and I myself did not do a ton of networking to find this position. I just sent out a whole ton of resumes and a ton of applications. Um, but I have been a mentor with the Dornsife mentorship the last several semesters, which has been really great. And so just to tie on to Sean's point about what you guys are doing, utilizing the networks that are your fellow students, because every potential connection is a network. USC has a ton of great resources just in terms of connecting you with folks for coffee or folks in industries. So just utilize those resources while you're here in school, and don't be afraid to reach out, like folks have said. We like talking about these things, so you know.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that. With that said, I do want to open it up for student questions. Again, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or type it in the chat. But yeah, now is the time to ask. In the case that some of our students might be feeling a little shy or thinking about their questions, I want to raise this one. For those that maybe aren't necessarily majoring or minoring in Rosky, how do you think that students can get involved within the, art and design industry? What advice do you have for students that may not be, studying this area, but are definitely interested?
I will jump in here because I was not in design. I did not study design at SC. I didn't know that I would want to even work in the art and design industry until I started getting practical experience with it. Um, it lar- I found a lot of benefit when I was initially volunteering with my first position that became my first design job. Um, I attended like community college classes after graduation at a local community college. I attended like design classes, um, both graphic design, cover art, digital art, typesetting, utilizing those kinds of resources and looking at, you don't have to just say, I'm not wild about my current career path, and so I want to completely pivot course and jump in. It can be, an incremental thing. I took night classes. I volunteered. And so there are those additional kind of pathways that if you realize, oh, I would like to experience this, but I don't have this I didn't have this experience in college. There are those other pathways.
Yeah, expertly said. Everett, thank you for raising your hand. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you so much. This question is more directed at Kira. I'm currently a student in the Architecture and Inventive Technologies pathway. So we're really focused on like the atypical aspects of architecture. And I was just wondering like how you managed to get into the architecture industry and like how has your experience been, like not specifically being an architect, but being part of the design process?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I wish I had a great answer for how I got into it. I really don't. I was interested in the job that was posted, and candidly, I wasn't qualified, but I applied anyway. So I guess if you're not qualified, apply to jobs still. And it turns out that I was probably more qualified than what the HR person wrote up. And as to how it's been, oh, it's been a lot of learning for me. I think anyone with an architecture background will say like that it is a whole different language, it's a whole different world, it's a whole different type of design. And I think for me, it's been trying to listen, trying to learn, but also being okay disrupting systems a little bit. I think that like as designers, our job is also to design systems and redesign systems. And I think that that's an interesting perspective that we bring. I'll also say too, it's super fun to work in an interdisciplinary environment. I think that it's really interesting to be a designer that can work with architects, interiors, master planners, etc., and create a cohesive experience. That being said, though, like I'm not an architect, so I can only really answer that from the design perspective. And I'll say it's highly collaborative, but your projects are also probably 5 to 10 years out. So there's kind of a fine balance there of what to expect.
I see. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kira, for answering that. Kelly, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, so thank you so much for speaking. I guess my question is twofold, or I have like two questions. The first one being, I don't know, I think like because like we're exposed to like such a wide like breadth of different art practices, it's hard to really figure out like what you actually are like passionate about, like how what you want to do for work, or like what you're passionate about might not actually be what you want to do for work. So how do you kind of navigate that and like figure out ultimately like what you do want to do? And also secondly, I know like I think there's like some more like unconventional art careers, I guess. And like how do you, I don't know, I guess this is related to the first question too, but how do you kind of like figure out like how do you discover things that maybe like might not be super common, or like I don't know.
Well, Kelly, one thing that I found that was a totally unexpected career pivot for me is, and thank you for your question too, is I've always loved font, lettering, like the shape of a word. As a young kid, I was obsessed with credits, just the shape and just spell checking names. I just loved that. And I also love to just draw everything, like handwriting, all this kind of stuff. And my friend, who was a music video director, still is a music video director, she saw my handwriting one day on an Instagram post and said, "Hey, you have nice handwriting. Do you want to do like, would you like to design the title sequence to this music video that I'm doing?" And it was this thing I never would have thought of. I never would have put myself forward. But looking back, it was this interesting thing where this director was finding a facet of my artistry that was a utility. I was useful for a very specific applied purpose. So if there's something within your artistic disciplines, Kelly, that you like, let's say that you're great at screen printing, or you do really good block prints, or you know about fabrics or dyes, or you know about photo archiving. If there's a utility that people can find a use for, you are useful to them because you are doing the gig that nobody else wants to do or nobody else thinks about. Like I would imagine not many people are shooting their hands up in the air like, ooh, I want to design the title sequence. I want to fix the kerning of every letter. I want to go through Creative Market and find the perfect font, hunting for hours and hours. Like sometimes the gig that kind of sustains you is the thing that nobody else wants to do, but you want to do based on a very specific skill. So I would just say be open to being useful in many different ways, you know. It can be the most like niche sort of thing or something tied into your main art practice, but be open to being useful in a variety of ways that you'll never expect.
Thank you for that, Sean. Yeah, definitely finding your niche, I'm hearing. I have a couple questions that some students put direct message to me. One of them is, how important has social media been for like freelance work and business type? I imagine that maybe one of our like entrepreneurs might have something to say to that, but yeah, how is social media playing out for you?
I'll go. I think that like for me, even in my own personal life, like I am active on looking at social media, but I don't post a ton. But I feel like for me, at least my experience has been that I have like my network has been what has made my work so abundant. So like I would say through the success of the companies that I'm working for, like the work that they do, like when that is amplified, other people see that and they're kind of asking, well, oh, like who did you partner with to do this? Or because they had a good experience working with me, they're like, wow, like I really enjoyed working with Olivia because of X, Y, and Z. And that referral sometimes is just so much stronger than finding someone on social media who you might like. Someone might like their work, but beyond that, it's like, what are they like to work with? How do they communicate? Are they professional when they show up? So I think there definitely is a really great purpose to just the visibility of having your work out there. But I think for me, just the value of having people speak on your behalf and the word of mouth has just been something that's been much, much more impactful on my career.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Do any other panelists have anything to say about social media? I know that maybe like might be a little different from everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add on to what Olivia mentioned. I never got a client through social media, even though I am active on Instagram and posting. So for sure, I think I've gotten most of my clients also through word of mouth and through past clients as well. And just to add on to when you maybe finish a job with a specific client, you can always tag on and say, like, if you know of any, great people who you've worked with in the past who could need help in some design work, um, you know, feel free to share my contact over. So like you're kind of growing your contacts through your people that already work with you and who already vouch for you and who like your work.
Interesting. Okay, so a little bit more networking I'm hearing of. Another question that I got was, do you have any favorite tools, software, or newsletters, or any resources that you recommend?
Yeah, I guess I'll go. For design, I think Illustrator tends to be just the form. I think knowing some type of collaborative tools like the Figmas of the world are always helpful. There's no harm in that. I'll say on the architecture or production design side of things, CAD tools, if there's any way to download that to your computer and learn scaling now, that always helps. Otherwise, Adobe Suite is just kind of true to form.
Yeah, Adobe is the bread and butter for a lot of art type related projects. Any other panelists know of any tools that they like to use specifically?
For video editing, I'm using DaVinci Studio a
Oh,
lot
okay.
more because of its horizontal integration of all of its software to go from raw footage to final product. In the Adobe suite, don't get me wrong, I love I love Adobe. You kind of have to ping pong your project into different like apps, but DaVinci has solidified and unified all of it in one sequence chain. So you can go from picture edit to sound to color to finishing and post, and then export your final product. So that's been a game changer for video editing. Yeah.
I see. I might take you up on that because I'm more a Premiere person, but I've also heard DaVinci is pretty great. Another question that I got is, ooh, I think this one's very topical, but how do you see the future of art and design evolving in the next few years? I mean, at the top of my head, I could imagine this might be like an AI related question, but yeah, how do y'all feel about the way that the art is heading?
I'll say, for me at least, like it's experience design. They're hiring for a human touch, and I think that AI can only replicate. So, I think understanding it as a tool, knowledge is power. I'm not saying actively use that tool, I'm not necessarily promoting that, but I think knowledge is power. But I also think that a human perspective is why people hire artists and designers. So I don't know if I'm as afraid as maybe I should be, but um, yeah, I don't know. I think what to circle back to the beginning, this talk about perspective and what you bring to the table and how you view the world, like AI doesn't have that. So I think that really hone in on that aspect of your resume, your practice, your career.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Any other yeah, okay, yeah. Yay. Alexa, go ahead and say your question.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for speaking to us today. I really appreciate it. I have a question regarding the difference between storytelling and communicating. So, in your creative work, there is some form of storytelling, but also in whatever workplace you're in, you're also communicating with your coworkers constantly. So, I was wondering if you think there is a difference between storytelling or communicating, or they're more or less the same in your eyes.
A really great question. I'm going to kind of stumble through an answer best I can. To me, storytelling and communication share the same goal, which is a destination, a conclusion where a lesson is learned or something is illuminated, a new idea is found. So I think that the work that all of us do as artists is to bring an audience member or a coworker in this case together with us on a journey where we're discovering together, and it's a participatory back and forth, having a dialogue at work about how can we make this project the most comprehensive and easily understood by all of our peers. We're talking about it together. We're moving together. And as designers and artists, I think that's something to be always be aware of. You're not designing in a void. You're designing for someone to receive it and give back with their reactions or their interest, or maybe it makes them cry, makes them laugh. So I guess the thing that I find is the commonality is the discussion, because design is a discussion. I design something and I present it, and then what do you think about that? And then from that friction or that interplay between those two things, that's when people get excited about the product or get more interested about the film you're making or the song you're trying to write. So I would say, yeah, it's all about a journey. It's about a journey together, knowing that it's a shared process. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Sean. Taryn, go ahead and ask away.
Saying thank you guys so much for taking the time to speak with us. My question is kind of about when we're building our portfolio, just some guidance on how we take that to the next step with more of the business side, whether that's like self-publishing or distributing. I guess to give more context or specifics, the way that I'm approaching it is like as building a portfolio as an art director and creating art books, I'm kind of navigating right now, finding like printers and distributors and sellers. And if you guys have any recommendations on that front.
I'm gonna answer your question, and it may not fully answer your question, but I think for students, like the portfolio is like one aspect of like your professional package, like if you want to think of it that way. So I think something that people feel like it's like, yes, I did my portfolio and like now I'm being thrown into the deep end because I'm applying, but now what? I think when you're thinking about your entire package, it's like it's going to be your portfolio and your resume, and if you are writing cover letters and like everything else that surrounds it. I think what's really important about that is like the professional side of, getting your package together versus the creative is that it shows like your distinction. So I think there's a lot of like, how do you show up even beyond the work? Like, how do you approach every step of the process? I think that level of intention is something that gives you just a little bit more oomph aside from like your projects might just be really great. Like what extra step are you taking? I don't really have the perspective to give like from the publishing side of it, but I do know that going the extra mile to really make sure that your work and how you present it, how you follow up with people and communicate, like when that's all really cohesive, um, it comes off a little bit. Honestly, it just feels like it gives it a little bit more. I don't know what's the word. It just feels like a little bit more elevated when you have someone who's looking to hire you or things like that.
Great, thank you for that. I will open it up for one more question if any student has anything to say, maybe raising your hand or typing it in the chat. Yes, okay, Alexa and then Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's me again. I actually have one more question. So I do traditional art, acrylic, and watercolor oil paint. And I was wondering, in your opinion, do you think there's a space for traditional art in the digital space, or is it more so just for digital art? Is there any opportunity to get into it?
That's such a good question. I'm just gonna say that like
I'll chime in. I would say as an independent designer, I think what's really fun is I end up working on projects with so many other people. And other times there are a lot of other contractors coming in. And I think what's really cool to see is like a lot of time, like the creative industry is like a pendulum. So I think while there's a ton of new forms of technology and really cool things happening, right now, I think the most impressive projects and the projects that I've been like, wow, that is really cool, is where there are those more traditional art forms being introduced into the work. So there are like projects where there is a tactile element that's being brought into like a brand identity project, or maybe it's something related to entertainment or whatever. But I think that there's a place where you can do both. I think as designers specifically, it's not just about hopping on a computer and making something in Illustrator or Photoshop, and then it's a completely digital experience. Like so much of it is bringing in influences and textures and inspiration. And I think that combined with technology makes something that's really, really unique and different. So absolutely, I would almost say I would encourage you to continue to explore that and keep that in your work as a designer.
I think too, like even if you end up pivoting or switching routes or redefining what that balance looks or feels like to you, those skills are integral to how you think about the process. So I think that making sure to not just like do like obviously learn the tools that you think are best marketable for what you're trying to do, but I think keeping those tangible skills is priceless. Like how you think about color, how you think about form, how you think about shape, and how you can control that with your hand. And even if you're in a corporate setting, if you're the one who can doodle on the table the idea, let me tell you that goes a long way. So I think that like just jumping off of what Olivia is saying, her points were phenomenal. And I'm just going to reiterate like those skills are priceless. And that's an important perspective that I think a lot of digital artists are missing.
those are such great answers. Thank you for that. Brooklyn, last but not least, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I'm a current cognitive science student, but I'm really interested in like all sorts of design, especially like UX design and all different types. I'm interested in multiple things, but I was looking to build a portfolio, but I don't really have that much experience. So I've been looking towards more passion projects. And I know, Stuart, you said that you looked into like designing for cookbooks. And I wanted to ask all of you like about your personal like passion projects and how you told your story, like how told your personal story with your portfolio.
Um, like my portfolio largely was the design work I'd accumulated as a volunteer, and I think that that is well, not to derail myself, but yeah, it was largely that, but um uh investing time in the things that are sustaining for you personally, and I think this goes to the prior question as well, of just like even if you're worried that you're wondering about how your skills might be marketable, I mean, there's always going to be room there's always going to be room, certainly always going to be room for it, but these are very these kinds of skills and the things that spark your own creative fire are going to be valued. They will come across, that will come across. Um, but yeah, in terms of the pursuit for a portfolio, it's I just wanted to be able to showcase a different aspect, and I wanted to challenge myself. I design good interior design you don't notice, and so I wanted to do something with a lot of like color for color and imagery for interior typesetting rather. So that was the pursuit there. But what kind of wherever your creativity and your whatever your interest sparks your interest, it is worth pursuing to the extent that you can.
That's a good answer. Do any other panelists have anything to say about passion projects and how that maybe propelled them a little bit?
I had a bit of a passion project. One thing that I do as a hobby, but also I incorporate to my films, the films that I direct are miniatures. I just naturally love making miniatures. And I had to do a film where I had to complete the film, but I was missing this location. I was like, how am I going to find this location? It's so expensive to shoot in a real hospital. So I was like, well, I'll just build it. And so I built this hospital hallway. It's about 5 feet long. And I built this little intricate set. I had so much fun making it. The final product, I feel like, to what Stuart said, it ignited my passion. I felt like my natural joy of making it was just imbued in every corner of this miniature that I made. And when I posted it on Instagram, I couldn't help that like the engagement went through the roof because people were just like, wow, that's a miniature, and all that stuff. And so it's something I've naturally built into my artistic practice of posting miniatures because it's something that I have a natural passion for. And I feel like for all the artists here in the chat, like whatever natural thing you have a passion for, it's almost hard to repress that, or it's hard to convince anybody that they shouldn't pay attention to what you deeply love. Because I feel like there's something naturally joyful that happens when an artist puts something out in the world they're super passionate about. There's something they can't take their eyes off of it, whatever that is for you. It's not to sound like a self-serving compliment that my miniatures are this amazing thing, but like it's something that I just love to do. And I found that whenever I posted, it brought people a lot of joy. So I said to myself, well, I can kind of turn this into sort of something that can stoke the fire a bit. Like the miniatures get lots of engagement. People DM me and message me for like projects and clients and stuff. So it was this thing that like was this natural hobby passion that then turned into something that people now sort of recognize me for, which is nice.
That's so cute. Is that the thing that you have on your website?
It is. It's the first image you see when you go on my website. So
I thought I clicked something in my brain. But okay, as we're closing this event, I want to thank our amazing panelists for sharing their industry insights with us. And thank you to the students that attended. I hope that you all learned something and gave a better understanding of this industry. Be on the lookout for our next events at the careers.usc.edu website. And if you're seeking summer options and are interested in the arts, education, nonprofit, or social justice options, consider joining us for our Intercity Arts Trek on Wednesday, April 9th. Transportation will be provided from campus, and you can hear directly from a recruiter. Be sure to submit your application today. It ends at 11:59 p.m. and all participants will also get a leather portfolio. I have one, and it's very helpful. But again, thank you all so much, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you so much, panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
having us.
you.